I know there's a lot of us out here that have been abused, especially by family members. And I just want to come on here and I want to tell my story. My abuser was my grandfather. He wasn't the only one, but he was the main one growing up when I was a child. Some of the ways that he abused me was, first of all, he used nursery rhymes to touch my body. Like, this little piggy went to the market, and then the end when he do wee 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 wee, do it all the way up my body, and that was his way of touching me. He did the itsy bitsy spider. He did a number of different nursery rhymes back then. I repressed all of the things that he did to me. All the men that sexually abused me as a child did it very tactfully. They had certain ways that they would do things and then make me forget. And my grandpa, his tactic was fear. One year during Mardi Gras, I was 15 years old, and my dad made me go with my grandpa to another man's house, and this man was a lawyer, and my grandpa wanted me to go talk to this lawyer on Mardi Gras, and I remember being so upset because all I wanted to do was go down to Mardi Gras because during Mardi Gras in Biloxi, it was like morning, noon, and night parades that we had, so it was one big party day, and I was 15, I was in high school, and I wanted to be with my friends, but my dad made me go with my grandpa. And the reason why I had to go with him was because my grandpa's lawyer friend wanted to tell me about another friend that offered me a job, and my grandpa didn't want me to take the job because he apparently knew that this man had taken girls, underage girls, up to his camp and did horrible things with them. So my grandpa wanted to take me to this lawyer's house, and the lawyer described to me what this man was accused of. So I told my grandpa that I would not work for this man. Well, on our way down to Biloxi, it was about a 45-minute drive from the lawyer's house down into Biloxi. And it was raining, and I remember my grandpa going really, really slow, and I asked him, I said, "Grandpa, can you go a little bit faster?" And he acted like he didn't hear me. He was real big on whistling, so he was whistling the tune to the song, and it was like he ignored me, so I asked him again, and he said, "Oh, come over here and sit by Grandpa." He always used when he talked to me, he would use third person. I don't know why, but so I went and scooted over. There was a bucket seat, so I just scooted on over. Not a bucket seat, but a bench seat. So I sat by him, and then he put his arm around me, and he was like, just, being all happy like he always is. And he was like, "You know, I love you. You know, Papa loves you, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah, Grandpa, I know you love me." And I said, "I love you too." And so he said, with his arm on my shoulder, he patted me and he said, "Why don't you show me how much you love me?" And he kept trying to push me down, like into his lap. And I was like, I pushed back and I was like, just not going down into his lap. And I was like, "I don't know what you're saying. What do you mean show you? I don't understand. I love you, Grandpa. How do I show you how much I love you?" And he was like, "Oh, Holly, you know." And he kept pushing me down further. And I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about." So he pulled his hand away from me and he pushed me over to the side. He said, "Get over there. You don't love Grandpa." So I was dumbfounded. I was in shock because my grandpa was my world growing up. I don't remember a time that he hardly wasn't in our lives because he was such a big part of my family. He was like the center of our family, and we always went over to his house, always. And he was always over at my dad's house, which so as a little girl, he was always there. So we finally get down to Biloxi, and there was this famous place called Josette's, and that's where all my friends were, downtown Biloxi. And I remember him going slow, and he just stopped And I was like, "I'll just get out and walk from here," because I knew where my friends were and it was very close. And he was like, "No, I'm gonna take you." So he kept going, and then we got to the railroad tracks behind Kyvet Street, and he pulls up on the railroad tracks, it was a standard, so he made the car sound like it died, and we stopped right on the railroad tracks. And Grandpa said, "I want to talk to you." I'm like, "What's happened to the car? What's happening?" And he's like, "It died." And then I look to my right, and there's a train headed directly for us. And all of a sudden I'm hearing honk, honk, and it was loud, and the train was close. And I'm like, "Grandpa, come on, let's get out of the truck. Make the car start. Get out. Let's go." And he grabbed my arm and held me there. And I could not imagine why this was happening. So I was freaking out. Like, I'm getting worked up just talking about it because of how it happened that day. And I remember him grabbing my arm and just holding it there. And I was trying to get out the door and he would not let me go. And then all of a sudden the truck started and then we rolled off the train track in the nick of time before that train hit us. And we get off the train tracks and I'm crying and I'm freaking out. And he just starts yelling at me, "Just forget everything that happened today. Just forget about it. I know that you love me and you just forget about it. Don't you dare tell anybody that this happened today. Don't tell anybody." And I promised him I wouldn't. I gave him a hug because he demanded me give him a hug before I left. And I get out and I go to my boyfriend at the time and I tell him that we almost got hit by a train. And that's all I say. And so that happened that day. And then fast forward to when I was 23. No, I was 26 years old. I had my son at 23. And 2 years after that, my son was in my bathroom. I had my own house. I was married at the time. My 2-year old came into the bathroom when I was taking a bath and needed to potty. So, him being 2, I was potty training him, and he pottied, and then he was about to leave out of the bathroom, and I was like, "Come here, come talk to mom while I'm taking a bath." And he reached up on the toilet to put it down so he could climb up and go sit on it, and I flooded with memories of me sitting on a toilet talking to somebody in a tub. So he unlocked a repressed memory for me that took place in a bathroom. And so after that, I sat in that tub and started trying to remember this instant that I was in a bathroom and I was picturing bathroom in an old house of mine. But the thing is, the old house that we lived in used to be the same house that my grandma and grandpa lived in. So at the time of when repressed memories come to you, I couldn't see the face and anything that happened in the bathroom except for the fact that I climbed up on the toilet to talk to my grandpa, because it ended up being my grandpa in the bathtub after sitting in that bathtub for hours trying to figure out and remember why I was having these emotions come over me and the memories of what had happened to me when I was a little girl, about the same age of Connor. He was 2 years old, and when I was remembering these memories, I was 2 years old. And that's how repressed memory happens, is when we have kids our own age going through certain things, then it triggers our memories. And so after that day, I remembered my grandpa pulling me in the bathtub with my clothes on, and he wanted me to go for the soap. He acted like he dropped the soap in the tub and that he needed me to find the soap. And in the midst of me looking for the soap, there were other things that I was feeling around for. And that is one of the first instances that I remembered about repressed memories. After remembering this memory, I I was stunned. Like, I was almost like I was comatose for the next couple of days remembering things. And when I remembered that bathtub instance, that's what unlocked my memory to remember about my grandpa putting me on or going that day during Fat Tuesdays, Mardi Gras, because I remembered us being on the railroad track. But before that, like, that's how psychopaths, geniuses that do these types of things, they are taught by other men in organizations, because my grandfather was a Mason and he was taught how to scare and put fear into me and other kids that he sexually molested too. That when you put fear into people, they forget up until that point of what took place. So I went to therapy after I started remembering these things. I looked up a therapist, a hypnotherapist, because I wanted to be hypnotized and to be told I was crazy. Like, I wanted to be crazy. I wanted to find out that I was just having a psychotic episode. It would have been better than to remember my grandfather, that was my world, did these things to me. But he did. He did these things to me. And from the age of 26, like, on, I had to remember the things that he stole my innocence from me. He stole those things to me from me, and it affected my life for the rest of my life up until this point right now. And there's so many things that I want to come on here and talk about, the things that he did and how he did them, because if I just tell my story, then it will help somebody. If it helps just one person, then I feel like I've done my job, even though it is very tough to talk about these things. I've had so many years. I'm 49 now. So from the age of 26 to 49, I've gone to therapy. I've written a book. I've done so much to get to this point. And there's so many things, like I said, I need to speak about. So if these things have happened to you, then know that you're not alone. And there's so many books out there that has helped me. And one of the books that I want to mention first and foremost is Cathy O'Brien and Mark Phillips' book called Trance-formation of America. That is one of the very first books that I read about how she was groomed and how her abusers did things to her methodically. They used MK Ultra and programming techniques on her the same way that my grandpa used programming on me. Like, I was trained to be a beta sex slave on demand. By him using certain words, he triggered my memory, and he um trained me to have multiple personalities. Dissociative disorder, it's DDI. And what it does is people that are taught these things program us to do certain things because of key trigger words that they teach us. The Illuminati formula to create an undetectable total mind control slave by Cisco Wheeler and Fritz Springmeier. That is a book that is so detailed in the steps that the programming is set up. There's a beta programming, and then there's delta programming. Beta is the sexual dissociative disorder and the multiple personalities that takes place within that programming. And then in the military organizations, that's delta. And that's how to take out people. Like, that's what happens at boot camp. That's why they break you down at boot camp, is that so they can um bring you back up into a killing machine without thought, without empathy. But there's so much more to this, but I highly recommend these two books. Um this last one, The Illuminati Formula, it is, you have to be pretty far into your recovery of repressed memories and sexual abuse that's taking place in your life, because if you haven't gotten a lot of help prior to reading this book, you're going to go through some very heavy um recollection of things that have happened to you because this book has so many triggers in it. It teaches you about the triggers. That way you know how to overcome the triggers. But it is it is a gold mine to actually read because it helps you recognize when these triggers are being said to you. You know how to block them. And let me just go ahead and tell you that the way that I was trained and programmed is the way that they are mass programming the whole population right now through the media, through songs, through movies, through all kinds of different things. But in order for us to see these things, we have to educate ourselves and know how they're programming people. That way we can stop it and that we know that they are unable to do it. But it has to stop with our generation. Like sexual abuse is the most epidemic, the most prolific type of abuse that's taking place in our world. And it's nobody hardly talks about it because they just sweep it under the rug. And then there's so many people that are in high positions that they cover up for each other. And that's what these Masons are doing. Like, and they're in high positions. So when you go to court to try to fight this, you have judges and lawyers and different people that have sworn an oath to each other to, like they'll get hurt if they don't protect their brothers. So that's why there's so much happening in our world and why so much is taking place as far as kids getting abused. I mean, look at the Epstein files. That has been taking place over generations, even. And these people that are in these positions are helping each other. So we have to make a conscious decision to educate ourselves and to know that we can stop this. We have the ability to stop this. And that's one thing my therapist told me. He said, Holly, you stop this somehow in some way. And after going to therapy and after remembering my memories, like I did stop it. I stopped it because in first grade, we had a good touch, bad touch play that taught us to say, no, I'm going to tell my mom, or no, I'm going to tell my teacher. So we have to educate ourselves about all these things and we have to stop this. This stops with my generation. I stopped this because as soon as I started remembering these things, I started using my voice to come out and talk about these things. And now I'm doing it on a bigger level by releasing these videos through YouTube and through my TikTok and eventually going to be on my Facebook, which are going to be local people. And I don't care. I don't care what people think of me anymore because this is my story and this happened to me and I don't want it to happen to my kids and I definitely don't want it to happen to my grandkids. So, be expecting more videos and follow along if these things are something that's happened to you and that you'd like to be in a community where we talk about these things.